Chess is a game centuries old, mostly everyone has heard of it, and today I'm going to be going over some of the basics, as well as some more advanced tips. The pawn is the piece you have the most of. They can move one space forward at a time, except for their first move, which they can move two if you choose to do so. They can also only attack on diagonals. This is probably because they are not paid enough to care any more than that. I've started by separating my pawns and my bishops. You know what happens if you keep the priests too close to the little ones. The rook resembles a small tower and can move along straight lines up and down and left or right. According to Wikipedia, the rook was formerly known as the tower, the rector, the marquess, and the comes. I get tower and rector because it's a building. Marquess makes sense because of queen, kings, knights, and bishops, but comes? What does that even mean? C-O-M-E-S. Comes. Look at it. Comes. Knocking over your own king is a sign of conceding, so what you could try is startling your opponent to see if they knock their king over. The opposite of the rook is the bishop. The bishop is capable of moving along lines at a diagonal. And because of this, each bishop can only stay on the color they start on, so each player has a white bishop and a black bishop. At least they have diversity. The knight is the only piece that can jump over others when it's making its move. The pawns can't because they're too short, the rooks are buildings, and the bishops can't because leapfrog is strictly forbidden by the Bible. It would be really helpful if you could know what your opponent's planning in advance. I've tried waterboarding my opponent's pieces before, but nothing. The queen is easily the most powerful piece you have. She can move in any of 8 directions, whichever way she wants. Ever wonder why they keep Elizabeth locked up in that castle? If you're quick, you could replace one of your opponent's pieces with a chessman cookie. A dog or something may come by later and eat it. Something else you can try is you can eat an opponent's piece while they're not looking. What's that? The knight is probably one of the most unique pieces in the game because it moves in an L shape, like this, like this. It can move like this. It can move in many directions. Rah! Nothing. The king is one of the most important pieces you have, because if you lose your king, you lose the game. Your king can only move one space in all of 8 directions, in contrast to the queen who can move any number of spaces. This is because the makers of chess did not believe in gender equality. I learned how to play chess from my older brother, who was taught by our father, who was taught by his father. I once played a game of chess against my grandfather, and I lost because of a silly mistake, and he has refused a rematch with me since. If you haven't moved your king and at least one of your rooks, you can perform a move called castling, where you switch the positions of your king and your rook. So your king is where your rook was, and your rook is now in the center. This is why the king is the leader, because of his ability to instantly swap places with buildings. Chess can be a simple game to learn, but it can be extremely hard to master. There are even championships across the world. Some players are even talented enough to play multiple games of chess at the same time, but I don't think I can fit that many pieces in my mouth.